cases. Welcome to Metra. I wasn't supposed to be here today, but I'm glad I am. My scheduling conflict got reconflicted, so I'm back. But that doesn't stop me from having the actual A-team up here to present to you guys today from Metra. And of course, our great partner in NICTE. And with that, I'd like to actually turn this over to Brett Johnson from Northwestern Transportation, as this is actually the host.
Yeah, so, thank you.
Green button.
Green button.
Green, there we go. Again, hi, I'm Brett Johnson. I'd like to welcome you all from the Northwestern University Transportation Center for this Sandhouse Rail Group event. We want to thank Metra for making this a tradition to have this discussion annually. This is a little later this year, but that's okay. But again, just want to thank Jim and the other leaders at Metra for being our hosts. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to our Master of Ceremonies, Norm Carlson.
Thanks. Well, we didn't need that. I usually have very short introductions. All of these people have become friends of mine over the time, and that's very valuable because it's wonderful to know people like these who've been so successful in the railroad industry. Mike was here at Metra for 25 years, was it? And he was the general counsel. Scott has recently joined Metra from the Belt Railway of Chicago, and he brings some very solid railway experience, engineering experience to our engineering department. Kevin McCann spent a few years in the airline industry before he joined us here at Metra, and he has come up through the mechanical ranks. And when I first met him, he was our chief mechanical officer, and now he is our deputy executive director and chief operating officer. Now, I'm not sure who's starting first here, but with that, who's starting first? Kevin?
Yeah. Let's just see if this works.
Kevin, let me just,
Yep.
impromptu, we have to do a safety briefing.
Yeah.
So you're at 547 West Jackson. In the event of emergency,
yes.
we're all going to go down across to Union Station, kitty corner to us. Remember who's sitting to your right and left. We'll do a count there. If you have some special need, write that down, put it in your pocket. We have AEDs located at every single elevator bank. We have people that are trained in that if that's needed. If we have first responder needs, we'll send someone downstairs to bring the first responders up. With that, if there's an active shooter, we run, hide, fight. So run away, hide if you can, and eventually if you have to, your life's on the line, you will fight. With that, enjoy Kevin McCann.
All
Thanks,
right.
Jim.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Metra's happy to host Sandhouse again this year. From what I understand, this is 10th year here at the building?
It's at least 10.
At least a decade, right? So that's a pretty great history. So we'll go through a series of slides for Metra, and I'll do some, and then Scott Schiemann, who's our Chief Engineering Officer, will take us through some infrastructure projects before passing them over to Mr. Noland. Let's see if this works. Clip. There you go. All right. So last year, Metra presented its mission and vision statements along with its strategic plan, goals, and initiatives for 2024. And this year, we'll provide an update on Metra's progress with some of these initiatives and look into the year to come. We've listed initiatives into 5 categories, which are the 5 you see up on the screen, that we'll go over in a little bit more detail. And then we'll be followed here by Scott to go over some infrastructure projects. You want to click that, or is, there you go. All right. Starting with enhanced service and mobility choices, we implemented a new fare structure program in February of 2024, and we reduced the number of zones on our system from 10 to 4. So our goal and focus was to encourage ridership as we're coming back from the pandemic and trying to regain our numbers pre-COVID, and to make the system easier to understand and to simplify fare collections, which is been an ongoing challenge for years. So we feel we've made significant progress on all 3 of these fronts. You want to click it, Cliff? Whoop, there you go. Okay, in addition to our new fare structure, we implemented new train schedules on 8 of our 11 lines. The new schedules provide increased frequency and shorter headways while simplifying service patterns and standardizing clock-faced schedules. The remaining lines are the Milwaukee West, North Central Service, and the Heritage Corridor, and we're currently working with our freight partners on implementing some new schedules on those lines. We also are increasing frequency on our weekend service, starting out with the BNSF, which has been into effect now for several months, and the increased weekend ridership has increased significantly on the Burlington Northern line. All right. One of the big news things here at Metra is bicycles. Our bicyclists out there, especially during the last 4 years, have really become out there, and they've visited some of our board meetings and have been very boisterous on what their expectations are. So we feel we've stepped up to the plate on this one. We carried 338,000 bikes on our trains last year, which represents a year-over-year increase since 2020 and a 26% increase from our previous pre-COVID high number in 2015. We started installing bicycle racks on our cars, and we have them. We've installed them on 110 cars, and we plan on doing 90 more cars this year. So that'll be a total of 200 cars with bike racks for what we're calling our phase 1. And we stop and look at data before we move on. So we'll have a phase 2, and if it's called for, we'll expand the program even further. Additionally, we converted 10 of our rail cars to accommodate 6 to 18 bicycles. One of them is just the gallery was removed, and you can actually stack bikes vertically in there. And we use those mainly for special events. Last year was our 4th year of doing what we call Rails, Trails, and Ales, which is kind of geared towards bicyclists, and we do it on the Heritage Corridor. And so that's been very, very successful over the last 4 years. And then, of course, we have the Bike to Drive that we do every Labor Day weekend. I'll get these buttons right here in a minute. Okay, moving on to improving the Metra experience. We're in the process of replacing our outdated LED signs at stations throughout the system with new digital signage. To date, we've installed 276 new digital displays, and that would be the display you see on the right-hand side of the screen there, at 105 of our stations across the system. We plan to install these digital displays at all 243 stations by mid-2026. And of course, the size and the number of these digital displays depends on the station, how many exits, how long the platforms are, and other structural considerations. But very exciting program, and we're getting a lot of positive feedback on those. We successfully launched our Acorn system in 2024, and this included replacing all onboard and station announcement systems, our GPS tracking system, and an overhaul of Metra's email and website alert systems. What you're seeing on the screen here is what we call metratracker.com, which went live in February of 2024 as well. The new site displays the location of all Metra trains and allows passengers to monitor train movement and look up active alerts specific to their trains or to their trip, which is nice, you know, if it's winter months and you're out in the cold in your car and you're early. You don't want to necessarily be standing out on the cold platform, so you can follow your trip on your phone. And then as the trip, you know, as the train approaches the station, boom, up you go and onto the train. So that's nice. And again, the system was designed to be easily navigatable on your cell phone. Soon, our passengers will be able to sign up for alerts sent directly to their email and their texts. Additionally, Metra replaced our aging point of sale system, which is our ticket agents, with ticket vending machines, which is what you see in the picture there. And currently, 120 of Metra's 243 stations now have what we refer to as TVMs, and there are 200 machines spread out across those 120 stations. We'll be adding additional 100 TVMs during phase one of this project. So phase one, I think, wraps up in August of 2025, and then we'll go back and look at the data and decide what our next steps are going to be. Just last week, on March 6th, Metra released the new Metra.com website. This is a major upgrade from our previous website. Metra redesigned the website to maximize viewing quality and usability on mobile devices. So interestingly enough, 75% of our web traffic is done now on cell phones. And it was hard to navigate that but now it's really easy. So if you haven't jumped on and experienced it, I encourage you to try it. I did it myself, and it's a huge upgrade. So the new website is accessible for our customers with visual disabilities as well, and is fully integrated into our new train tracking system. Innovation to become more efficient and effective. So this is another one of our buckets. Metra increasingly uses data-driven strategies and new technology in our day-to-day decision-making process. We've started the transition from traditional paper forms to interactive digital work screens used by our employees via an app on their company-issued cell phone. This is really exciting for us. We've developed these apps in-house. We currently have 10 of them, and we're working on more. And it's all about making the job more efficient, and it's really, really working out well. This technology not only increases efficiency and reduces mistakes, but is able to pinpoint the location of assets and defects in real time using the cell phone's GPS coordinates, which are also matched with the assets registry in our Maximo system. So our Maximo system is where all of Metra's assets are registered. And so if you're out there with your cell phone doing an inspection, making a report, in real time, you're actually reporting it into a digital form, and the digital form has a time and a GPS stamp which verifies where it's at. So it's a really, really cool system. And we're currently looking into voice recognition technology to further increase the efficiency of the digital forms. So here's just the list. There's, like I said, there's at least 10. It might be up to 12 now, mobile apps that we use. One of these is also our system-wide safety hazard log, where employees can use their mobile devices to identify and report safety hazards in real time. So again, this is something new that was required by federal regulation in the new 270 rules that came out in October of 2024. And it's really a handy tool. So if you're out and about and you have a platform height that's not correct, or some textile that's loose, or a pothole, anything, when you put it in, there's an app now, you can take a picture of that, upload it onto your app, and it gets pulled right into the system. It's got your GPS coordinates, your timestamp, and you can actually select the level of priority for that particular safety concern. So it's night and day in just a short period of time. The technology that's available now that we're using is really neat stuff. Okay, Metra has been working diligently to replace and renew its antiquated fleet of locomotives and passenger rail cars to maintain a state of good repair. These pictures have been out there, and they're very, very exciting. The locomotives, you see the SD70 there on the bottom left. Since issuing notice to proceed in January of 2019, we've received 21 of these locomotives, and we exercised an option for 9 additional, and we just exercised, I believe we just exercised our second option for 9 additional. So it's a total order of 43, 15 base order, and then 9 locomotives per option. So we're having great luck with those locomotives. It was a huge transition for Metra, going from DC technology to AC technology. This was really a big step for Metra with these SD70s, and even though they're bigger, they're more fuel efficient than our older F40s. So It was a great fit for us. They are Tier 3, and we really feel like we got our bang for our buck as far as emissions goes on those locomotives. In April of 2021, we issued notice to proceed for a base order of 200 new Alstom-built rail cars. That's on the bottom right. We're very, very excited to get these cars. I believe the first cars are scheduled to come in the last quarter of 26, and then the production models will start early in 2027. But these are nothing like our gallery cars. The side loading doors are double. There's 2 on each side. They're airbag suspension. The technology is just phenomenal, and they're actually not gallery. They're double level cars. It's actually 3 levels on these cars. So we're very excited to see those arrive. And then in June of last year, we issued notice to proceed for the picture on the top there, which is a Stadler-built train set. Those are battery-powered train sets. And the board gave us permission to go out for 8 train sets with an option for 8 more. Those are expected to arrive in late 27 as well. So we're very excited, and we've got our hands full with some of these projects, in addition to the overhaul projects, which Metra's been doing here since its inception, really. But great news and great things to look forward to in our rolling stock. All right, next one on the bucket list, expanding service to the broader region. In July of 2023, the state of Illinois selected Metra to provide passenger rail service between Rockford and Chicago. There's a picture of our locomotive there out on the bridge in Rockford. Preliminary engineering of the signal system on Metra's territory on the Milwaukee district is now complete, and the preliminary engineering of the civil design is about 10% complete. Final design and construction agreements between IDOT and Metra are ongoing, and an operating agreement is being negotiated as well. This is a New Start project, so Metra is working with IDOT to complete the FRA's New Start requirements. To expand service on the UP Northwest line, Metra is developing a rail yard relocation and expansion project in Woodstock, Illinois. Just recently, this picture here is U.S. Representative Bill Foster delivered $850,000 in federal funding towards the relocation of the rail yard from Crystal Lake to Woodstock. We'll be combining some smaller yards there for efficiencies. This is in addition to $212,500 contribution by McHenry County, which is part of their overall commitment of, I believe it's $11 million. This is very early on, and this is a very expensive project, but we wanted to give you an update on there. Preliminary engineering is currently underway with an expectation to be at 30% by June, July timeframe this year. And the next public meeting is scheduled for March 18th at the Woodstock Opera House. The system-wide network plan is Metra's effort to build out the regional rail vision identified in our strategic plan. The plan focuses on operating frequency that extends far beyond the central business district of Chicago. A second round of system-wide network plan public outreach is scheduled for the second quarter of this year, and you can find details on our website. All right. We'll take questions as probably we get to the end, but I'm going to go ahead and pass the presentation on now over to Scott Schiemann, who's our Chief Engineering Officer at Metra. You want to use that, Scott?
You don't mind, I'm going to stand.
No, you can go right up there as long as there's a clicker.
Morning, everyone. So, like Norm said, Scott Schiemann, Chief Engineer at Metra. I've been here about a year now. Came from the Belt Railway. Prior to that, I was Chief Engineer over there. Civil engineer background. I actually started as an intern with one of the engineering firms here about 20 years ago. So that's just a rough recap of my history. And as I go along, if you want to ask questions or at the end, whatever works better for everyone. But I don't mind if you want to ask along. So just touching on some of our station work, I know all of you probably get the alerts from the media, but we opened 4 new stations last year. You can see them in the pictures here. You know, this is, you know, tens of millions of dollars invested in the infrastructure, a lot of stations on the electric line, and you'll see that as we go through. So we opened up 3 new stations on the electric line last year and 1 on the UP. If all of you get a chance, I would recommend going out to these stations. They're beautiful. And it's not just what you see in the picture. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes to do these, and especially on the electric lines. For any of you that have been involved with these construction projects, I would say they're a construction, not nightmare, but just challenge, because you have to de-energize the DC every day. You have to have an EIC. So just the force account work to support a contractor to build one of these stations is, you know, astronomical just on that piece alone. So here's some other ongoing projects that are still in the works. The bottom left is Grayland Station. The Milwaukee Avenue Bridge opened up last year in 2024. The station is slated for this year. It's a beautiful bridge. I don't know if any of you have been to Milwaukee Avenue, but that old bridge was falling apart. So job well done on that project. The top right, 95th Street. If any of you have been over there, they have demoed the existing building that's next to our substation. So for those of you that don't know, that's the old brick building is our substation with all our electrical infrastructure in it, and then the new station is right next to it. So a big challenge to keep everything functional and build the new station.
I saw Grayland is being constructed just north of the old.
Correct. Yeah, and then we did the temporary platforms over there too. Some more ongoing projects. The Rock Island, if you see the Auburn Park, that's a multi-year project. That's another unique challenge I would call it, it's like a double decker. So you have one railroad that's elevated, the BRC and the NS, and then the Rock Island is elevated a second time over that. So, you know, contractors, to do that work, you have retaining walls that are over 25 feet tall. So a unique challenge of working over there. Warren Grove, the top right, we're working with them to build a new station. So they're building the new station right adjacent to the existing one, and then they'll reconfigure the parking lot and things over there. 103rd, if any of you guys have been on the other MED stations, another beautiful station that's going to be invested in the neighborhood. Moving on, I know Norm had put some of this in his magazine, but the 16th Street Diamond was replaced in the fall. There was a slow order on there for years, so this was a win-win for Metra. There was a 10 mph slow order, so it was a total win-win for CN and Metra, so they could get fluidity and we could get fluidity in the LaSalle Street. So now the slow order's gone. The next phase of this project, if you look in the background, that's the 16th Street Tower that if any of you have been in there, it needs some TLC. So that's one of the last towers we have on our system. We have another one that's just as old. So 16th will get remoted to our CCF, our command center, and that's slated to happen at the end of the month. And for those of you that are wondering, the tower, so we're working with the State Historic Preservation, so that the inside of the tower, the old mechanisms and all that we're working with them, that it'll get donated to a museum and get displayed somewhere. So just so if any of you thought we were just going to demo it and throw it away, that's not going to happen. So we've already applied for this permitting with the state so that we will take all the machinery and anything with any nostalgic memorabilia, and then it'll get displayed somewhere. So, but as far as functional, that tower will be obsolete here in a couple weeks. Moving on, this is the UD Tower, if anyone knows Joliet. So this is kind of one of the first on a heavy tonnage corridor. This is an owl diamond they put in, which stands for one-way low speed. And the reason we worked with BN and UP on this is we had slow orders out here every day. The tonnage they run on there is probably, I would guess, over 100 million gross ton a year on each UP and BN. So constant slow orders, constant issues. So we came in agreement with them that there's an owl diamond there now for our side because, our passenger trains now stop east of that diamond. So unique project. They did it all in one day. And if you're interested, we have a ton of pictures. BN put up a drone during this project, so there's a ton of pictures of it going on. Correct. So the Iowa and CSX run over us they come on at BI Junction, and then they run west, and then west of this diamond and get onto CSX territory. So our maintenance stops west of here. But for the freight traffic, the amount of tonnage is what allowed us to put an owl in. Normally an owl, it's, 10 million gross ton or less and 10 mile an hour. Moving forward, if any of you watched our last board meeting, there was a presentation about our bridge program. We own, and Metra alone, 446 bridges. So we are seeking additional capital funds to get us in a state of good repair. And that doesn't include the obligations that we have to fund on the other lines that we don't own, like the UP, where we run over a total of over 900 bridges. So what we're doing is systematically looking at our bridges and saying, what's our worst bridge? And we're putting together a plan to, the current seek is, 10 bridges a year for replacement. So for everyone to do the math, if you do 10 bridges a year, that's going to take you 40 years just to cycle through the Metra owned. At that point, 40 years from now, we will have bridges that are in the magnitude of, 150 to 200 years old, because part of our system was elevated late 1800s, 1900s. So you see the monumental task that we have ahead of us. So we're currently designing our lowest capacity bridges. So any of the old timber bridges, any that are low capacity, so that we can run timetable speed and heavy tonnage. Kind of switching gears into smart gates. If any of you saw in the media, we were awarded a grant to upgrade some of our crossings. So we are in, I would just say, the infancy stage of developing smart crossings, which will communicate to the back office that what is the crossing health. And the biggest one for us is, let's just say you lose commercial power. You lose commercial power, we have battery backups, but you need to know you lost commercial power, so then eventually you don't run out of your battery backup. So what this health monitoring will do is tell you have so many inputs from the crossing. If you have an issue, it's going to send an alert to us, so then we know to send a maintainer to this crossing so we can get a generator, we can call ComEd, and get whatever we need going. So that's in the future state is, and I know people see AI and cameras, and we're working down the path also that if you put a camera on the crossing and now you have a vehicle stalled and it's not moving, that, it'll alert us. So this is all, there's a lot of companies, a lot of railroads all trying to solve this same problem. I just talked to a professor yesterday that's working on this on the East Coast. So there's a lot of people all trying to solve the same problem, that what happens when, people go around the gates or stop on the crossing. So switching gears a little too into signaling on the electric line too. So we upgraded to PTC, over the past decade. It have been investing hundreds of millions into our infrastructure. There is a segment on the electric line that's direction of traffic. So what we need to do is upgrade that into CTC. And one reason we need to do this is we're building a new station for the new Obama Center. We're replacing that station. Well, we can't replace that station if we can't run trains in any direction on any track. So we have to upgrade this segment of track that right now you need a movement permit to CTC. So there's going to be, this is our big push in the signal world, is we need to add all these additional signals to go both directions so that now we can run trains on other tracks, and then we can accommodate the station reconstruction. Also on the electric line, we're investing millions, and this will segue into Mike next with the NICD project. So we have aging infrastructure on the electric line that's from the 1920s. So it's already a 100-year-old catenary. That wire, the catenary wire is the original wire. It's all 100 years old. So everything we touch there is now getting retrofitted with new wire, new structures, new turnouts, new tracks. So it's all original. So this is a unique project that we get to move into the 21st century because it's quite literally, 100 years old. So these are just some construction projects. You can see some turnout work, and there's another slide. We're installing, tens of crossovers, so all the switch machines on all those. So that's like the middle picture. So every one of those switch machines needs to get wired up and installed. On the left is every one of these new catenary structures has a foundation that we need to carefully install in between train traffic. And then to the right is some pictures of the new catenary structures. So that's just a brief overview of engineering. If you have any questions right now, but I know Mike is going to go more into the NICD work.
There seem to be several projects, and this one not so much directed to you and a group at large. There seems to be a lot in the news about projects beyond this.
We're going to get a microphone.
Well, let's take questions at the end.
At the end?
So we can-
Okay.
We want to have questions on the microphone, so it's taken. Okay?
All right.
Thanks, Dave.
There seem to be a lot of projects in the news involving places beyond the traditional six-county area, which has been the funding area. Is there any expectation of a restructuring of Metra to reflect that greater service area?
I think this is above my pay grade outlet.
It's a good question, and no. So right now, obviously, there's a lot of planning studies being done, but there's absolutely right now a lock on the dollars that come in to support the 6 counties and the Regional Transportation Authority. Beyond that, there's some planning ways. You might be talking about Kendall County. DeKalb talks to us. There's a lot of people talking to us. It's good to have those conversations, but no, until there's monies available to do the infrastructure and eventually the operations, the answer is no. So, Mike.
Okay. You guys going to cue up the presentation?
Is there a video this year?
There's a video. All right, thank you. And it's great to be here. Thanks, Jim, for hosting. Great setup for what I'd like to talk about here today. And many of you were here last year. When you were here last year, we were on the cusp of opening up a major new rail service. So I get to talk about that today and some of the things we're doing. I'm going to quickly go through some, because I only have an hour, I think. Some slides about the railroad. 1977, we were created. Chesapeake and Ohio tried to pull the plug on the service, and the state of Indiana created NICD to run the service. In 1990, we actually began operations. The prior owner of the railroad went bankrupt, and we purchased the assets out of bankruptcy. And so we own, operate, maintain, and control the railroad, and we've got a wonderful freight partner in South Shore Freight, a subsidiary of Anacostia and Pacific. We work very closely with them. We're actually housed in the same location in Michigan City. Our goals have always been to reduce travel time to and from Chicago, add more trains, and thereby increase reliability of our service and then grow the service and try to get to the point where our goal was always to double the ridership that we had in 2019. Now 2019 is our measurement from the COVID era. We're not back at 2019 yet, but I'm a glass half full person. So I think we're going to get there. We're just going to get there differently. This is our 5-year capital plan. It's $2 billion. Now, you put that in terms of, I'm about a 20th the size of Metra. So Jim, multiply your capital plan by 220. That'd be $40 billion in a 5-year for Metra. So the state of Indiana has really shown the way forward to invest heavily into the infrastructure of our railroad. Our two big projects, the double track project, which I'll get into in a minute, we finished up last year, and then our West Lake Corridor expansion that runs from North Hammond down to Dyer make up the most of the project, although Scott did mention that we have about $200 million in investment on the Metra Track 4 project to increase capacity for both of our services. And then we have our 5-year annual State of Good Repair program. It's not hard to see why we're jealous of our friends over here on Metra. That's the rail system in Indiana, one line serving 4 counties, and you guys in Northeast Illinois are blessed to have the Metra system that I always say you can't throw a rock and not hit a Metra train no matter where you live. It's great service. It covers a vast portion of the region, and so the first phase of expanding service in Indiana is to not only double track the South Shore, but also to expand with the Monon Corridor expansion. Why did we want to do it? Well, we're attached to the 7th largest economy in the world, third largest in the country. The jobs here in Chicago pay more on average than they do in our neck of the woods. And so we think that it makes economic sense, and that's how we sold the investment to folks in the General Assembly in Indiana that aren't necessarily pro-transit, but they're big on return on investment. And that's the way the state of Indiana looked forward to funding our two big projects. The double track project's a 26-mile corridor that was mostly single track between Gary and Michigan City on the right, Gary on the left. That's now completely double tracked. It's a $650 million project. You'll hear me, if I can play the video, if I can cue it up, you'll hear that we actually came in $50 million under budget and ahead of schedule. 26 miles of new track, or over 26 miles, 16 miles of new track, 4 new bridges, 5 new high-speed crossovers, 5 new high-level boarding platforms. All of our boarding is moving to high-level, getting away from the low-level boarding. It's better for our customers with disabilities, for those of us who are getting older, for bikes on trains, and it's much quicker to board and alight a system when you're walking like an elevator on a level platform instead of climbing upstairs. And we opened up service last May. There's significant safety enhancements. Those of you who've been to Michigan City in the old days, we ran right down the middle of the street. We had a lot of accidents, 33 grade crossings. None of them had active gates, lights, or bells, crossbucks, and stop signs. And we're now separate on our own right-of-way, so we're no longer in the street. We're protected from the cars and pedestrians with active gates, lights, and bells now at every single crossing, and we closed 20 grade crossings. So we all know that we search to find crossings we can close. In Michigan City, we closed 20 of them. There's a shot of our train coming down in Michigan City on the new separated double track territory. That's a shot of our new station at 11th Street in Franklin in Michigan City. Both high-level platforms there. That little dirt area to the left of our platforms is going to be a $100 million private sector development that the parking structure is just about finished, and the towers for the 12-story luxury apartment building are already up. And I think they're talking about finishing up the private sector element next year or the year after. Our station and parking structure opens up in about 2 months. We were single-tracked across the Amtrak Diamond. We're now double-tracked. Here's double-tracking down 10th Street. There's our Beverly Shores. That's the last Insel station that remains on the system. It's on the historic register. It remains a low-level platform. We probably have 35 to 40 riders a day. It didn't justify the investment to go to high level, but we maintain that station with a low level. It's a flag stop crossing. There's one of our 4 bridges at Cleveland Cliffs, one over Norfolk Southern. We built a second track. Actually, we had a second track at Ogden Dunes. We built a high-level platform there. We installed another bridge over CSX and then over Old Hobart Road. So we added 4 bridges to the system, 3 new stations. That's our new station at Miller in Gary. We had a ribbon-cutting ceremony in May of last year. And who's back there? Click on that video. I told you I had videos. We'll see if it plays. No pressure. All right, write down that number. Everybody get your smartphones out and play it. Are we not able to click on it? There it is. What an incredible day this is. Decades of dreaming, planning, engineering, 2.5 years of construction, and here we are on the eve of new and vastly improved South Shoreline service. The railroad is poised to perform like never before. And I want to say this, I'm going to say it loud. We completed this project on time and under budget. That might kill every single day.
Today is just such a gratifying day. It's fantastic to have something that you believed in and you've worked on and you even fought for so long actually come to pass. Honestly, it's even more satisfying seeing all the benefits that these projects are actually bringing to Northwest Indiana, to see that actually happening today.
Indiana Department of Transportation is leading an effort to reduce fatalities and severe accidents on Indiana's roadways and transportation systems, multiple modes, by 25% over the next 10 years. Truly a testament to the multifaceted nature of what we've done here, so couldn't be more proud of the safety investment that we're making here on this project.
This is a day where Indiana once again proves that we can not only do big things, but we can do the biggest of things like this project. And what will come from it is even more important than today. It's about opportunity and new opportunities. It's about community investment. This is an ROI that I believe is unparalleled.
This is an amazing day for Northwest Indiana. These projects are expected to create thousands of new jobs and result in billions of dollars of private investment in the area. This will yield material benefits for this generation and future generations.
Today's ribbon cutting, for me, is really a testament to leaders who came together at all levels of our government. And that is a goal to make Indiana not only the best state that it possibly can be, but a state that continues to be a place where people want to live, work, and raise a family.
Together, let's board this train of opportunity and embark on a journey towards a brighter, more prosperous future for Northwest Indiana.
I had that video made specially for this presentation. Okay. There we go. Part of the project involves a deal that Jim and I worked out a few years ago, which is to lease 26 of the HL1 vehicles and use them in service, not only on the South Shoreline, but I remind my friends at Metra that we provide service. We are our Metra from Hegwish to downtown Chicago. So these Metra leased vehicles will be in service here, and Jim's team is rehabbing them right now on a midlife, and we're excited to get those 26 cars to add to our fleet. So it's part of our capital program, and it's part of our upgraded service for our customers There's 26 of these high HL1s. NICTE actually purchased 14 identical cars from that same car order in 2005. So they're from the same car order that Nippon Sharyo built for both Metra and NICTE 20-some years ago. The Westlake Corridor project I mentioned is part of those two major projects that are being funded. It's an 8-mile segment of extension from North Hammond down to the Munster-Dyer border, much of the way following about 6 miles of old Monon Railroad right-of-way that was purchased in 1990 in cooperation with the city of Hammond and with Munster and NICTE. All three of us purchased it with the vision that someday it could be a commuter rail line. And initially, it's been a bike path. And as we all know, when rails go to trails, they never come back to rails. But we purchased it specifically with the intention that someday it would be a commuter rail system, and that someday is just about today. It's a $943 million project. It is a design build project that started in 2020, and we're looking at revenue service summer of 2025. Summer is a loose term here. You can define it any way you want. One of the key elements of the project is bringing the Westlake Corridor service from Munster up to North Hammond and then tying in with the mainline service in North Hammond. So here's a shot. On the left is the Westlake Corridor service that's up in the air, and on the right is the new relocated mainline service at grade. And then a little farther to the right is the double track, the old double track service that is actually now decommissioned. There's 16 bridges on this project. Somebody might say, why is it $950 million? There's 16 bridges on the project. We're up in the air for about 1.5 miles through Hammond. So it's a lot of elevated structure, a lot of civil structural work. And this is a shot looking towards the south here on the corridor. Here's one of the bridges over the Grand Calumet River. This is looking again from the northeast to looking to the west. That tall building in the back of the orange building there is called the old Bank Calumet that a developer purchased, completely gutted, and is open now for high-end residential use. And right about, I'm just going to step over here, right about here or so, we're going to be adding an infill station. Once Westlake is done, we've agreed with the mayor of Hammond, who's going to fund the station. We will build an infill station right there in downtown Hammond. So there's several $100 million of private sector development that's already committed and going in anticipation of the fact that we're going to have an infill station all on the Westlake corridor. It will not be, we're not even going to touch it until Westlake is done, but Hammond has already got the RFP out and the plans to get it going. Here we're over the Little Cal and we duck underneath I-94. This is Maynard Junction, where we are flying over the CSX railroad. Originally, we thought we'd go at grade, but CSX and CN didn't think that was a good idea. So we went up and over them. Probably not, it wouldn't have been a good idea in the first place anyway. Here's our station at Munster Ridge Road. The end of the line right now is at our Munster-Dyer station at the southern end of the project. There's a shot of Gateway Station today. We closed the old Hammond Station last October, late September and October, and we moved 3 blocks to the west. And the orange roof right there is our center-bound high-level platform. Those cars there in the parking lot are using passengers that use the new Hammond Gateway Station. We have a station building there, and then you go underneath the Westlake corridor in a tunnel, and then you board on the Hammond Gateway Station. There's another aerial shot of Hammond Gateway. Here's one of our trains coming in using the new station. And here's a view that's aerial view looking to the west towards Chicago. So you can see the double track, the new double track on the left. The single track far left is the Westlake corridor, where they all come together and we proceed and meet up in Indiana, just to the east of the Indiana Harbor Belt, where we cross the IHB. And then you can still see to the far right there of the tracks, that's the old South Shore line that's being decommissioned as we speak. Again, there's another shot. That bridge is over the CSX, and there's the upper level there is the Monon corridor in the air, and then at grade is the South Shore line. Another same picture. Here's the end of the line at in Munster Dyer. We are right next to the CSX. We are building an underpass there at the end of the line at Extended Main Street in Munster Dyer. On the left side, that's our parking lot. There's a pedestrian underpass that's kind of outlined in green there. We go underneath the CSX tracks, and on the far right is our new station at Munster Dyer, and then our right-of-way will be just to the east of the CSX. There's another aerial shot of the platform. One of the questions we always get is some neighbors get concerned about, what's going to happen when you bring rail service to my community. They're worried that there's going to be disruption and crime and whatever. All those homes there that was vacant land 3-4 years ago. Those homes are going for $800,000. So I'd like to show this picture to people who have questions about the viability and the safety and the attractiveness of having commuter rail in their backyard. These folks don't seem to have an issue with it. One of the things that we need to do as part of the project, as mentioned, is we're building the underpass underneath CSX. That's a challenge to take a Class 1's tracks out of service for any amount of time. It takes a lot of coordination. It's taken us some time to get there, but this is from about a month ago where, in coordination with CSX, we pulled the Monon out of service for 12 hours to put in the jump span, which is the temporary structure before the superstructure will be dropped. The permanent superstructure for the underpass will be dropped in at the end of May. And there's another shot of the work being done. We had to do it in a 12-hour window. And so it was a very, very well orchestrated, very coordinated effort to pull the tracks out of service, get the jump span dropped in, and put everything back in place, and we made it in on time. One of the things that we're doing is to be ready for this new service on Westlake is we're taking 32 of our 1982 cars. We're completely gutting them and doing a full rehab on those cars. So it was mentioned before, Metra's got an active rehab program. So do we. The cars will be basically stuffed with look brand new for our riders when they get them. Another one of our projects is the relocation of our terminal in South Bend. That pinkish red line is our current route from the left side that's coming from Chicago. We progress past the airport and we go around the airport. It's a reverse C kind of a move. It takes us about an extra 13 to 15 minutes. That territory is slow ordered track. It's the last, we've been expecting to get out of the east side of the railroad. We went into the east side temporarily in 1990. So, temporary in the railroad industry has a different term to it than what normal people might think of as temporary. And the green route is what we're working on right now, is to come off our main line and go directly into the west side of the airport. We are at we're just about completed with the environmental. 100% engineering will be completed in about 2 months. We're in the process right now of trying to put funding locally together. It's about a $112 million project. There's an artist rendition of what will be a high-level 8-car platform coming into South Bend International Airport. We want to do it to save about 13 to 15 minutes for each and every train to and from Chicago. It's always been a goal of this area to get to 90-minute service. It's 90 miles from South Bend, Indiana to Chicago. We eliminate a number of grade crossings. We have already funded the engineering. What we also want to put in an airport shuttle. Once we get this built, it'll be less than a half an hour ride from 11th Street Station in Michigan City to the airport. We can run a 2-car shuttle back and forth between the airport and Michigan City and really connect into that airport, and then have a 2-seat ride for anybody who wants to go further to back, transfer at Michigan City, go to Chicago, or take a train from Chicago to Michigan City and transfer it to the airport shuttle. We expect that this will quadruple ridership to the airport, and we're looking for federal funding on it right now. The reporter asked me yesterday, what's my crystal ball on federal funding? I shook it up really well. It was kind of murky. I couldn't see. One of the things that we ran into when we were doing the environmental is a number of people that want the railroad, rather than to go to the airport, just to continue on 3 miles in the downtown South Bend. We had a lot of discussion about that. Getting to the airport's about a $112 million project. Getting to downtown South Bend is probably $350 to $400 million. Plus, it'll be a full-blown environmental. So we convinced the community that we can get this project to the airport done now. And my board adopted an amendment to our strategic plan last September to make going downtown part of our plan. So, and I've told everybody, if it's not in your board's plan, if it's not in your vision, it's likely not going to happen. So it's now in the plan. Someday, the community and NICD and the state and the federal government, if they see so fit, will move that plan from a vision to reality. So first step is to get it into the plan. Here's that would be the route. You see that little red route would be where we go into the west side of the airport, and then that blue line would be where we continue from where we get off to go to the airport. Instead of getting off, we would continue on to downtown South Bend adjacent to the Norfolk Southern. Now, we did approach the Norfolk Southern. They do have some property there, and the Norfolk Southern politely said no. So we would have to build our own dedicated right-of-way adjacent to the NS to go to downtown South Bend. And right there, that's kind of a depiction of what I'm talking about. On the left would be, in the center would be an airport transfer station. On the left would be a two-car shuttle that would bounce back and forth between the station, and the right would be a mainline train coming from Chicago and heading to downtown South Bend. And if you wanted to go to the airport, you'd hop off at the airport shuttle. And that's that. Here's sort of I don't know if it's going to run or not. Let's see. If it runs, that's what this graphic does show is the number of grade crossings that are on the current route. I can't get it to, there it goes. So there's that current route. It doesn't go that fast. It's limited to about 15 miles an hour. This is the new route that is about 2.5 miles shorter, and the speeds that we can run on are much greater. We can run 35 to 45 miles an hour on the new route, where the old route was, like I said, it's 15 miles. It's not PTC territory, and so we got a PTC exemption. I probably couldn't get that today, but we got that exemption. NICD's got a 20-year strategic plan. Actually, when I hired on in NICD, they sent me the plan. I've joked that I read it, and I said, this is not a 20-year plan, it's a 20-minute plan. And we have now just about checked the box on every aspect of that plan. The major elements were double track the railroad, Westlake Corridor, the Metra capacity project that Scott mentioned, which actually was part and parcel of the fact that we're bringing 26 additional trains onto the Metra corridor. 14 new trains were added because of double track, 12 new trains onto Metra when we add Westlake. And so we jointly worked with Metra, and we did a capacity study and realized that yeah, it might be able to be done, but it's gonna strain the system way too much. So the project that Scott talked about, that Metra Track 4 project, essentially, and those of you who know the system, the Metra Electric is a grade separated quadruple track railroad until we get to just south of 11th Street, where we go from 4 tracks to 3 tracks, right in the heart of the system. And so what this project simply does is reconfigures the rail yard and takes one of the storage tracks and makes it the 4th main line all the way into our terminals, adding essentially for 1.5 miles a track, 25% additional capacity. So it's an exciting project. It is running on schedule right now. I think we're to finish up sometime next year, right? Next year? And it's running on budget, so that's good as well. So we're an Indiana-based railroad. We're putting $200 million of funding from Indiana into the Metro Electric District because we believe in the system. We believe in the spirit. We work together extremely well. And when Scott mentioned the bidirectional signaling project, that is near and dear to our hearts. The system is a quadruple track system, but essentially it's not. It's 2 tracks of directional signaling one way and 2 tracks of directional signaling the other way from 67th to 11th. And so by making it bidirectional, now we have 4 tracks, and we can send a track at any direction at any time down at any point of the day. Opens up tremendous amount of capacity, allows for the projects to be built because we're going to be taking tracks out of service, and ultimately it paves the way for what Jim and I have scratched our heads about is you got quadruple track grade separated territory, and we're running 65 miles an hour. This system should be a minimum of 79 miles an hour, and at some point in time, getting to 90 miles. And for us on the South Shore Line, we get on at Kensington. Some of our trains don't stop till Van Buren. If we can highball at 79 miles an hour from Kensington to that 14 miles to Van Buren, we can do that in 8 or 9 minutes. Today, my fastest train runs at about 21 minutes down the corridor. So that would be a huge. Think about that. For each and every train that we run, we can save 10 to 12 minutes of an individual's time each way. That's 20 minutes a day. That's an hour. Well, somebody do the math. It's more than an hour. It's an hour and 40 minutes a week, and you can keep doing your own math. It'd be a substantial improvement, and it's a great opportunity for us to work together. And as the South Shore Line, from an Indiana perspective, we want to participate in that investment. So we're not just investing in things across the border. We're investing and want to invest in the Metra service as well. I mentioned the strategic plan, and I'm just about finished, and I have no more videos. The plan is done, and so as I said to my board last September, a board should not be without a plan. A staff should not be without the board's vision. So since the plan that we had from 2014 is done, the board authorized us, and we've hired AECOM to work with us to update the next 20 years of vision for the commuter rail service. I've put on the slide here the things that I think we're going to hear because we've heard them in the past. Westlake is a phased project. It was originally scheduled to go not just to Munster Dyer, but to go to Lowell, St. John, and Cedar Lake. So phase 2 of Westlake. Valparaiso has asked for service. LaPorte has asked for service. I mentioned that the folks in St. Joseph County and South Bend want to extend to downtown South Bend. There's a potential new station in New Carlisle, Indiana, especially since there's a $10 billion GM plant and a multi-billion-dollar Amazon facility, and they're not done with that New Carlisle area. That's going to be an expanding area along our system. We need a new station in Gary. We just mentioned bidirectional signaling and upgrading to 79 or 90 miles an hour. Our rolling stock in 10 years will be beyond its useful life. So we know that we're going to need to convert the rolling stock, and maybe it will go to battery electric. And when we go back up to those line extensions, I don't see any reason why we would continue stringing wire on these new extensions. We've already got the charging. I got 90 miles of charging station. So those new extensions would be battery electric, and we would just run the trains down the line. Then they can go 50 miles on a charge right now, have a charging station at the end of the line, and then they get back under the wire and off they go. So we're excited about the future of rolling stock technology. The double track project ended in Michigan City, just to the west of Michigan Boulevard. Probably should have gone all the way past Carroll Avenue. Somebody didn't do that. I'll take them. At some point in time, you got to stop a project, and that seemed to be all the money we could probably generate. But we need phase 2 of double track to be done past our yard, another couple miles in Michigan City. And I'm sure we're out now. We're going to be surveying our riders. We're going to survey the public. We're going to meet with our stakeholders. We're going to find out what they want. And so I'm sure I'm not sure these all things will make the plan. There may be other things that get into the plan, but we intend to bring that back to our board later this year. And I'm going to quote our friend Daniel Burnham, who made this statement right after Chicago burnt down. So imagine this. You've got this metropolitan area, and the city is wiped out, and his vision then was make no little plans. And I know it says make no small plans, but he actually said make no little plans. And so we all know that there's a current administration that's looking at DOGE and looking at cutting wherever they can from various different programs. These are cycles. We're looking at a 20-year horizon. And so from my perspective, this is not the time to retrench. It's not the time to pull back. It's the time, think big, small plans never go anywhere. Make big plans. If they're justified, they'll happen. So I thank you all for having me here today. Appreciate the offer to join Jim and his team. Thank you guys. It's an honor to be up here, and thanks for having us again, our friends at Northwestern. Thank you.
Mike, I also want to add my thanks to everybody, including Jim, for making this happen. And it's become a tradition here, and we hope to reassemble next year, quite honestly, and view all the progress. One thing I'd like to emphasize, Mike, is what is happening in Michigan City. Because Michigan City, am I correct, goes back like to the 50s and 60s when the downturn started? I think it goes that far back.
It certainly is a classic Rust Belt city, and I think one of the federal, national, can't remember what his name, but he basically said when the last person in Michigan City turned out the lights. I mean, yeah. It lost a ton of industry, a couple big rail car manufacturers, other major industrial employers went away.
You talked about the $100 million in the building adjacent to your station, but I've heard numbers as much as $500 billion, of which X is underway already.
So when we, as I said, we sold the investment to the state, to folks in Fort Wayne and Evansville, Indiana, because of the ROI. We did a presentation in Michigan City before the projects got funded, and the projection was that we would have $600 million of private sector investment over 30 years. There's $500 million of committed private sector investment, and we've been open 10 months. So if that gives you any kind of an indication of the interest, it's a $100 million project there. There's a $400 million project that's on the lake. There's another $100 million project of vacant land next to Michigan Boulevard. And not a developer, but the first people in take the biggest risk. It's the yes, build it and they will come. Once those projects that are being built are successful, then the next projects, it makes it easier and easier and easier. So I think that the estimate of $600 million over 30 years is a little bit conservative. Yeah, we've seen, and we experienced it because we acquired 60 homes as part of our project. As part of both projects, we acquired 450 properties through eminent domain. I guess the railroad land baron I am. And so we started off with an estimate of what those values would be. As the project got funded and people realized it was reality, the property values soared. And so they're up significantly in the area, and they're continuing to grow.
And in the area goes up into beyond New Buffalo, Michigan, and I don't know how far north you could say it goes, but and it's a very, very hot area. It's back to when I was a kid and everybody headed out there. It's returned to that, and
downtown Hammond. Go to downtown Hammond. It's being remade. There's another community that you went down Holman Boulevard and you went about 45 miles an hour. They've now slowed it down, and there's tons of development in downtown Hammond. That's a resurrection of again, another old industrial town that fell on hard times and really now is seeing a renaissance.
And one quick story about how long temporary means in a railroad industry. The alignment of Metra Electric from the Duck Under to 22nd Street to basically almost Congress Street is temporary. They were going to reroute it through Central Station. And when they built it, they had wood platforms for the catenary bridges. And I remember as a kid seeing those wood platforms when I would ride the train downtown as we went through 18th Street. So if you're doing some digging around 18th Street and you find some additional lumber, that's what the catenary towers used to sit on.
Well, Weldon Yard was built in 1925, I believe, and it was a temporary facility. Still there, right?
Still there. Questions? Bon, we got a microphone.
He's coming.
Changing the subject slightly, Norm. Driving around doing errands this week, I heard on the radio that UP was going to stop Metra service on its 3 lines in August. The North Line, Northwest Line, and West Line. And there was like no explanation about what was going on. And I know something about it, but I was kind of surprised to hear it on the public radio that.
Yeah, so devil's in the detail. And I don't know how much I didn't hear the sound bite, but obviously UP asked the courts for a declaratory statement on whether or not they have the ability to shut the service down. The courts did agree with them that, yes, they do not have an obligation to continue running the service. We've been negotiating with them for many years now to take over the service. Knowing the fact that they have that card, we basically now are in a position to say, well, if you do this, then what else happens? And so that's really what's going on here. There's some dealings in the courts and dealings at the STB that are going to help us and UP get closer together. We still have a common goal of finishing these negotiations by the end of this year.
So what can you tell us about the fiscal cliff and consolidation?
So I knew I'd have a role here today. The fiscal cliff's real for Metra and the other 2 service boards in Illinois. It's going to hit us in mid-26. What that means from a budgeting standpoint, if we do not have a fiscal hole filler budget from the state of Illinois by, I'll say, June 1, we have to build our budgets with a potential 20% reduction of expense, which will be 40% reduction of service into 26. So it's real. If we don't have it, our board has no choice. We don't have money coming in. We have to reduce expenses by that much. So there's a lot of conversations. Just yesterday was a hearing. Senate Transportation had one, the Blandick building. They had proponents and opponents of the MMA bill, proponents and opponents of the labor bill that was put out there. We continue to go to hearings. We got another one next Wednesday. We got to go down to Springfield, speak with House Transportation. So it's an ongoing conversation. I think it's 83 days left. And before then, and we've got to get a solution in place. And without that solution, again, we will unfortunately have to go down the arduous path of figuring out how to shed that expense.
And I would add, from your friends across the other side of the border, our fiscal cliff is this year. We run out of money December, January. Indiana budgets every 2 years, and we're in a budget session. So we have to fix it this year. There is no next year for us because it's a short session and Indiana does not deal with budget issues. They just, trust me, they don't. So we're down right now trying to deal with our fiscal cliff as well. Theoretically, I could turn the lever and look at what service I could cut, but I signed a contract with the federal government for full funding grant agreements to build $1.6 billion of projects and committed to service. So if I do cut service, I'm in breach of those agreements.
Yeah. And I think one other, key point in all this, there's all these numbers that get thrown around. It was 730, now it's 771. That only fills the 26 hole. And that's for the 3 service boards combined. Metra's about $230 million in 26. When you go to 27 and you have no COVID money filling in that budget year, for the region, it's going to push to about 1.1 billion. Metra will go to about 330 million. And that's just for the service you have today.
Make no little plans.
Have there been any issues with the new double track in Michigan City? Have there been like a teething issues trying to, because it's an all new setup for everybody.
You would bring that up.
Oops,
Kidding.
Sorry.
It's okay. Yes, we did have teething issues, probably created by me, because we just poured in $650 million of money, of infrastructure money. And when we opened up our service, we did not have 30 seconds of recovery time. And you might know that commuter railroads build in recovery time. But I want to see what this railroad could do. So the first schedule we put in on May 14th of 2014, we were probably running about 25% on-time performance. That's really not a good metric in our world. But we looked at every place where we had a challenge. Every place, it was all new infrastructure. Our dispatchers had new routing, they had new tracks, they had new patterns. Our customers had new platforms where they just had one train, one track, one direction. Now you had platforms that could have a track on any platform at any time in any direction. Where's the train? Where's the engineer going to spot on the platforms? These are 820 feet platforms. So we'd have situations where the engineer pulled to the west end of the platform and our passengers are on the east end of the platform. So now you're waiting for a minute and a half for people to stroll on down and get on the train. We had coordination issues with our friends at Metra. It was all new for them as well. Instead of 39 trains a day, we're running 53 trains a day, and none of those trains are being run at the same times they were being run before. So it was all new to our dispatchers, to the Metra dispatchers, to our engineers, to our passengers, to working with Amtrak where we cross it. So we had a whiteboard of about 20 different major issues that we tackled, and we really took a hard look and made sure that we were running like clockwork everywhere we could. In August, we tweaked the schedule. We saw a significant improvement, not where we want to be. We got up to about 65% OTP. And then this last February, on February 18th, we tweaked the schedule again. We're running close to 90% on time now. And we've put in a very small amount of recovery. And so we know what the railroad can do. That's the thing, is that, a lot of our schedules are historic. And over the years, nobody wants to stand up in front of anybody's board and explain why on-time performance failed. So there's two things you can do. Figure out the root cause of the failure, which to Scott's credit, I'm hearing, hey, we got a slow order there. We can either add time to the schedule on the rack, or we can attack the slow order and get it out at 16th Street or at Joliet and figure it out. And so that's what we really need to do. So we're happy with the schedule now, and we're looking for improvements as we go. But we have a small cushion of recovery.
Yeah, 115 years, and then you change things. It's going to be a challenge.
Any other questions?
For Metra regarding the battery power train sets, is the plan to use those in lieu of existing equipment on the existing schedule, or do you envision at some point maybe using those for a new type of service on the existing tracks suited to self-propelled MU cars?
Yeah, so definitely on the existing track, but for specific service. I'm not going to commit to any particular area, but there's, maybe up on North Central service, maybe on the Beverly division on the Rock Island, areas where it makes sense, right? So additionally, they are battery powered, so there won't be a catenary, but there'll be a high rate charging station. So there's infrastructure that has to be considered as well. And we'll look at that and see where it makes the most sense with the first sets that we get, and then we'll go from there. But yeah, on the existing infrastructure, haven't committed to those areas yet, but we've identified several areas where we would put them. And then additionally, there could be new service that we're looking at is part of our system-wide network plan that it could apply to as well, possibly out to the airport and things like that. But those are all things that are being considered right now.
I understand there are some railroads that want to extend beyond their catenary, and they get battery electric ones that charge under the catenary and don't have to wait at the end to charge?
Yeah, there's different technology. There's tri-modes, some from catenary, and then it'll stop. So it'll charge for a certain distance, and then it'll charge the batteries, and then it'll go for another so many miles, and there'll be a quick charge station where you might stop for 20 minutes and get a quick charge. There's third rail. There's all kinds of different options out there depending upon where you're at, but that is correct. I mean, there's as Mike said earlier, catenary is not cheap. It's extremely expensive, right? By inch, I guess you could say. And so, yeah, the industry and technology is taking us to a very exciting place, actually, where you can invest that money into the rolling stock. So.
Has any consideration been given to hydrogen?
Well, what I will say is that we look at everything. I don't think we're there yet. There's a lot of talk. There has been for a long, long time. There's obvious concerns with it. But Metra is constantly looking, with NCG, all the different technologies that are out there. One of the nice things about the train sets that we're procuring for the battery power is that there's a power module in between the cars. And that module, without replacing the entire train set, you can just replace that module. So should a hydrogen alternative become available that makes sense for Metra, it wouldn't be like going out and buying all new cars. You would just replace the power module between the coaches.
As information and kind of a disclosure of what I've been doing since the presentation, Railway Age March 11th has a very nice summary of where Metra and UP stand with all the proceedings and the arguments and the history of the relationship between the railroads, including how much of the transition between UP and Metra has already occurred. So March 11th, Railway Age online.
I still think they have a common carrier obligation and the court was wrong. It's not my fight.
Yeah, well, John and Plant and I were chatting over lunch that I had a conversation with an attorney who was the co-author of the ICC Termination Act, and he and Arvid Roach, who was with Covington and Burling, who has been the longtime outside legal firm of UP, was the principal author. And Arvid died very young from cancer, but he was a brilliant, brilliant commerce attorney. And the fellow I was talking to said, Arvid and I found every nail we could to nail the passenger service in the coffin and make sure it'd never be open again. So that was the background of the ICC Termination Act, and that's when public convenience and necessity was designed for, you're talking about passenger trains. They twisted that around so that public convenience and necessity was freight service. And so that's some of the things that are in there. And I think there's a lot of people beyond you, Mike, that may share that opinion because it's really an area that has not been plumbed to any depth at all. So it's, but I think that this may be an interesting case and we may want to be watching it. Any other questions? Well, thank you for coming. For you visiting with us, we try to make it informative for you. Thank you to everyone here at the table, and Brett, I don't know if you'd like to close anything or not, but you're good. So with that, we will adjourn, and hopefully we will see you sometime a year from now, rough round.
Thank you. Sir.